June 6, 1944. The rolling hills of Normandy, France, just inland from Utah Beach. Dawn's first light filters through a haze of smoke and salt spray, carried on a stiff wind from the channel. The air reeks of diesel fumes, cordite, and the metallic tang of blood-soaked earth. Sergeant Elias Kane crouches in a shallow foxhole, his fingers numb around the grip of his Thompson submachine gun. At 28, he's wiry and sharp-eyed, with a face etched by 2 years of foxhole living, dirt-streaked cheeks, a perpetual squint from scanning horizons for the glint of German steel. The invasion is in its chaotic infancy. Paratroopers from the 101st Airborne have scattered like confetti across the hedgerows, their silk shoots tangled in the bocage's stubborn orchards. Elias's unit, a signals detachment attached to the 82nd Airborne, has linked up unevenly after a night of drops gone haywire. Bullets whip through the air like angry hornets, and somewhere nearby, a German MG-42 chatters its lethal rhythm, stitching the ground with lead. "Keep your heads down," bellows Captain Harlan Reed, Elias's CO, a stocky West Pointer with a voice like gravel under tank treads. Reed hunkers beside him, peering through binoculars at the distant rumble of engines. "Those Kraut Panzers are stirring. If they get their radios synced, we're flank steak." Elias nods, his heart pounding a staccato beat against his ribs. He's no frontline infantryman by trade. Back in training at Fort Monmouth, he was the whiz with valves and frequencies, the guy who could make a radio sing or scream. But D-Day doesn't care about specialties. Last night, as his C-47 bucked through flak over the coast, Elias had clutched his backpack radio set like a lifeline, wondering if he'd ever see the States again. His wife, Clara, waiting in their cramped Brooklyn apartment, or the corner deli where he'd grab egg creams after shifts. Now, the order comes crackling over the field phone line, snaking through the mud. It's from Division HQ, relayed in hushed urgency. Jam their frequencies. Disrupt the wolf packs before they howl. Elias's stomach twists. Jamming isn't just flipping a switch, it's a desperate art in the fog of war, turning Allied ingenuity against the Wehrmacht's vaunted command net. "Kane!" Reed snaps, slapping his shoulder. "You're up! That backpack rig of yours, get it howling on 38.5 megacycles. The Panzers are massing east of Carentan. If we blind their comms, we buy the beachhead time." Elias swallows hard, the taste of fear bitter on his tongue. He slings the Thompson over his shoulder and hauls out his SCR-284 portable transmitter, a bulky beast of bakelite and wires weighing nearly 30 pounds. The device's antenna whips in the breeze as he uncoils it, fingers fumbling with the tuning dials. Around him, GIs huddle in the churned soil. Private Lomax, a farm boy from Iowa with freckles like rust spots, clutches his M1 Garand. Corporal Ruiz from the Bronx mutters prayers in Spanish while checking his grenades. The ground trembles faintly, a harbinger. Elias can hear it now, the low growl of Maybach engines, the clank of tracks devouring the Norman lanes. Tiger tanks, or maybe Panthers, monsters that could shred Shermans like tin cans. Their radios are the nerve center, linking spotters to commanders, coordinating the blitz that nearly turned the tide at Salerno. He powers up the set, the vacuum tubes warming with a soft hum that cuts through the distant artillery. Static hisses from the speaker, a white noise veil over the ether. Elias twists the knob, calibrating to the German Enigma-derived bands they've pieced together from captured intel. His mind races through the physics. Overload their receivers with noise, drown the orders in a sea of interference. But it's risky. One wrong frequency, and he could jam his own side. "Sergeant, you sure about this?" Lomax whispers, his voice barely audible over the wind rustling the apple blossoms caught in the wire. Elias meets his eyes, forcing a grin. "Sure as shooting, kid. Ever hear a ghost story? This one's going to make their radios scream like banshees." He keys the transmitter, and the jamming pulse erupts, a piercing whine modulated into bursts of chaos flooding the spectrum. It's like unleashing a digital sandstorm. Elias imagines it rippling outward, invisible waves crashing against the Panzer's Fuji-5 sets, garbling the clipped German commands. Vorwärts! Flankenangriff! For a moment, silence descends on their position, broken only by the pop of small arms fire. Then, feedback loops back through his receiver, distorted voices frantic and overlapping, like an orchestra tuning in hell. The Germans are feeling it. Elias adjusts the power, cranking the output to max, the set growing hot under his palms. Sweat beads on his forehead, mixing with the grit, but the Panzers don't stop. Through the binoculars Reed hands him, Elias spots them. Dark silhouettes cresting a rise, turrets swiveling like predatory heads. A lead Panther, its long 75mm gun probing the mist, leads a column of 5, ZDKFZ, 250 half-tracks trailing, infantry dismounting to fan out. Their commander, likely an Oberleutnant barking from a command tank, is trying to rally, but the jams are sowing confusion. Elias catches fragments. Störung, Wiederholen, interference, repeat. They're slowing, Reed mutters, a spark of hope in his eyes. Keep it up, Kane. You're the devil's DJ today. Elias's arms ache from holding the rig steady, but he pours everything into it. Memories of Pearl Harbor newsreels, the rationed letters from Clara, the oath he swore to end this madness. The jamming intensifies, a relentless barrage that turns precise maneuvers into hesitant lurches. One half-track veers off the road, its driver veering blindly as orders dissolve into static. You can almost feel the frustration in the enemy lines, the commanders slamming fists on periscopes, radiomen twisting dials in vain. Elias is the unseen saboteur, his signal a weapon sharper than any bayonet. As the sun climbs higher, burning off the fog, the first Allied P-47 Thunderbolts streak overhead, their engines a thunderous counterpoint to his electronic assault. But the Panzers adapt, or try to. A runner darts between vehicles, carrying handwritten dispatches, old-school desperation. Elias sees it through the haze, the column fracturing, cohesion crumbling without the wireless lifeline. His jam has bought precious minutes, turning a coordinated strike into a stumbling probe. Lomax whoops softly. Holy hell, Sarge, you did it! They're milling like lost sheep. Not yet, Elias thinks, wiping sweat from his brow. The war's teeth are still bared. But in this moment, amid the Normandy mud and the roar of approaching doom, he's struck the first blow in a silence that will echo through the division. The ether belongs to him now, and with it, perhaps the tide. The sun hangs low over the Normandy bocage, casting long shadows through the splintered hedgerows like fingers clawing at the earth. It's mid-morning on June 6, 1944, and the air vibrates with the relentless chatter of small arms fire, punctuated by the deeper cough of artillery shells arcing overhead. Sergeant Elias Kane's foxhole has become a sweat-soaked command post, his SCR-284 transmitter humming like an overtaxed beehive beside him. The device's bakelite casing scorches his thigh where it rests, but he doesn't flinch. His fingers, calloused from endless hours tweaking circuits back in England, dance over the dials, modulating the jamming signal into a tighter, more vicious pulse. Captain Reed crouches low, his field jacket caked in mud that smells of wet clay and gun oil. He scans the ridgeline through his binoculars, the lenses fogged slightly from the humidity rising off the dew-kissed fields. They're regrouping, Kane. That lead Panther's got its turret trained on us. See the glint off the optics? Your noise is pissing 'em off, but they're stubborn bastards. Elias nods, his breath coming in shallow bursts. The jamming has fractured their advance, turning what should have been a lightning thrust into a hesitant crawl. Through the ether, he catches echoes of the chaos he's unleashed. Garbled snippets of German, voices rising in pitch like men shouting into a gale. Find contact. Störung anhaltend. Enemy contact, interference persisting. It's music to his ears, a symphony of frustration broadcast on the very waves they rely on. Private Lomax shifts beside him, his M1 Garand propped against the foxhole lip, bayonet fixed and gleaming dully. The kid's face is pale under the freckles, eyes wide as he peers at the distant shapes. "Sarge, what if they figure it out? Start using wires or flags or something. We can't jam a damn messenger pigeon." Ruiz chuckles darkly from his spot, reloading a clip of 45 rounds with practiced snaps. "Pigeons? These Nazis got tigers, not carrier birds. But yeah, Elias, you're burning hot. That rig's gonna melt if you push it harder." Elias wipes his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of grease and soil. He's already rerouted power from the backpack battery, squeezing every watt into the output coil. The transmitter's fan whirs futilely against the heat, and a faint ozone tang fills the air, mingling with the sharper scent of cordite from a nearby barrage. He knows the risks. Overloading could fry the tubes, leave them blind to their own signals. But retreat isn't an option. Division's orders were clear: hold the line at all costs, keep the Panzers deaf until the beachhead firms up. A sudden rumble shakes the ground, closer now, like thunder rolling in from the sea. Elias risks a glance over the parapet. The Panther column has splintered further. 2 half-tracks have bogged down in a ditch, their crews spilling out like ants from a kicked nest, waving frantically. The lead tank idles its commander. Elias imagines a stern-faced Hauptmann with a monocle and a clipped mustache, leaning from the hatch, bellowing into a field phone jury-rigged to bypass the radio. No luck. Elias's signal blankets the band, a white-hot fog that scrambles every transmission. "Adjust to 42 megacycles," Reed orders, his voice steady but edged with urgency. "Intel says that's their backup for armor nets. Hit 'em there, and we clip their claws." Elias complies, twisting the frequency knob with a soft click. The static surges, evolving into a banshee wail that he can feel in his teeth. You can picture it washing over the German lines, radio men in the Panzer's cramped bowels slamming headphones down, cursing in guttural tones as dials spin uselessly. Orders meant to synchronize a flanking maneuver dissolve into electronic gibberish, leaving spotters isolated, gunners firing blind. The effect ripples outward. From their vantage, Elias sees a Stug KFZ-251 half-track lurch forward prematurely, its 20mm autocannon chattering wildly into the empty air. Bullets rake a stand of elms, shredding leaves that flutter down like green confetti. Behind it, an infantry squad, Feldgrau uniforms stark against the verdant fields, fans out haphazardly, shouting to be heard over the din. No coordinated push, just men stumbling into the unknown, their radios reduced to silent tombs. Lomax lets out a low whistle. Look at that. The big cat's stalled. Driver's revving like he's got ants in his pants. Elias allows himself a grim smile, but it's short-lived. A sharp crack echoes from the east, followed by the whine of a shell slicing the air. It impacts 50 yards short, gouging a crater that sprays dirt like shrapnel. The Panzers are probing, using their 88mm guns to feel out positions despite the comms blackout. Elias ducks as fragments whistle overhead, pinging off a nearby fence post. "They're mad as hell," Ruiz mutters, tossing a grenade into his lap for quick access. "Keep pouring it on, Sarge. Make 'em dance." Elias does, fine-tuning the modulation to pulse in rhythmic bursts, short, sharp spikes that mimic Morse code interference, sowing doubt even in visual relays. His mind flashes to the training films, waveforms on oscilloscopes, the invisible battlefield where battles are won before the first shot. Back home, Clara would tease him about his radio magic, but here it's sorcery and khaki. The ground quakes again, harder this time. Through the haze, Elias spots movement, a motorcycle dispatch rider weaving through the column, dispatch case strapped to his back, dodging ruts and shell holes. The Germans are falling back on the basics, couriers on BMW R-71s, kicking up dust as they relay maps and orders by hand. It's a vulnerability Elias exploits further, shifting his jam to overlap command frequencies, ensuring even relayed intel arrives muddled. Reed grabs his arm, eyes fierce. Good work, but we can't stay put. That ridgeline's too exposed. Move us to the orchard, higher ground, better line of sight. Lomax, Ruiz, cover fire. They scramble, bellies to the mud, the transmitter slung between Elias and Reed like a shared burden. Bullets zip past, one grazing Lomax's helmet with a metallic tang. The orchard looms ahead, gnarled apple trees heavy with unripe fruit, branches interlaced like barbed wire. They burrow into a new position amid the roots, the scent of bruised apples, sharp and sweet, against the acrid backdrop. From here, the view clarifies the enemy's unraveling. The Panzer division, elements of the 21st, Elias reckons from briefings, sprawls disorganized across the fields. What was meant to be a devastating counterattack has devolved into isolated skirmishes. A lone tiger bogged in a marshy patch, its crew winching futilely, infantry platoons clumping together, officers on foot gesticulating wildly. Without the wireless web, the wolf pack is just scattered hounds baying at shadows. Elias keys the transmitter again, the whine rising to a crescendo. Feedback loops back, desperate calls for backup, drowned in his storm. A runner reaches the lead Panzer, only for the tank to veer sharply, misinterpreting the shouted directive amid the noise. It crushes a hedgerow, exposing its flank to a sudden burst from an advancing GI patrol. "You feel that?" Reed says, clapping Elias's back. "Whole divisions grinding to a halt. You're not just jamming radios, Kane. You're silencing their soul." Elias's muscles scream from the strain, but adrenaline surges through him like the signal itself. The sun beats down, warming the earth, as Allied artillery begins to answer in kind, shells whistling in retaliation. In this fragile pocket of Normandy, amid the rustle of leaves and the distant roar of engines faltering, Elias holds the frequency hostage. The Panzers prowl, but blindly now, their claws sheathed in silence. And as the day wears on, he wonders how long he can keep the ether chained before the storm breaks fully. The afternoon sun claws its way through the canopy of the Normandy orchard, turning the air thick and golden, laced with the fermenting sweetness of fallen apples crushed under boot heels. It's still June 6th, 1944, but the day stretches like taffy, each minute a grind against the relentless push of war. Sergeant Elias Kane hunkers deeper into the root-tangled depression, his SCR-284 transmitter balanced precariously on a mossy stump, its vents exhaling hot breath that warps the humid air. Sweat soaks through his olive-drab shirt, plastering it to his skin, while the device's hum vibrates up his spine like a tuning fork struck too hard. Captain Reed wipes his binoculars on his sleeve, the lenses smeared with pollen from the low-hanging branches. "They're not done yet, Kane. See that dust cloud? Reinforcements. Looks like more half-tracks from the 21st. If they punch through the gaps, we're done. Double down on the armor band. Make it hurt." Elias's thumbs ache from the constant adjustments, but he nods, his jaw set like the flint in his lighter. The jamming signal pulses stronger now, a layered assault he's improvised on the fly, overlapping frequencies to blanket not just the Panzer's FUG sets, but the infantry's portable cassetten receivers too. He can almost taste the disruption in the ether, a metallic buzz on his tongue, as if the radio waves are bending back on themselves. Through the receiver's speaker, fragmented German bleeds through. "Keine Verbindung. Find Jammer." No connection. Enemy jammer. The voices crackle with rising panic, officers reduced to shouting over the white noise. Private Lomax, his freckled face streaked with dirt, peers through a gap in the foliage, his M1 Garand steady in his grip. "Sarge!" That motorcycle kid circling back. He's got a squad with him, rifles up, scanning like hawks. They know something's wrong with their wires. Ruiz, ever the skeptic, spits a wad of tobacco juice into the leaves. "Let 'em come. My Tommy's thirsty." He racks the slide on his Thompson, the metallic snick echoing softly amid the rustle of wind through the branches. The orchard floor vibrates as the new arrivals rumble closer, their Sitkayers 250s growling over the rutted paths. tracks chewing through the soft earth like mechanical jaws. Elias spots them through the dappled light. 3 half-tracks, canvas flaps tied back to reveal grim-faced Lancer clutching MP40s, their Stahlhelms glinting. Behind them, a command variant, likely carrying a signals officer, trails with an extended antenna whipping like a scorpion's tail. They're probing, trying to restore the net, perhaps with a directional finder to triangulate the source. Elias's pulse quickens. You can feel the noose tightening, the German's ingenuity clawing back against his electronic siege. He shifts the transmitter's output, injecting bursts of harmonic interference, high-pitched squeals designed to overload their amplifiers, turning receivers into smoking ruins. The set grows perilously hot. He slaps a damp rag over the casing, steam hissing where it meets the metal. "Come on, you bastard," he mutters to the rig, willing it to hold. A burst of fire erupts from the tree line, bullets splintering bark inches from Ruiz's head. Wood chips rain down, sharp and stinging, as the half-track's mounted MG-34 opens up, tracers arcing like fireflies in the daylight. "Down!" Reed roars, shoving Lomax flat as rounds stitch the ground, kicking up clods of soil that smell of damp rot and iron. Elias flattens himself, the transmitter teetering but intact. His mind races. If they close the distance, it's over. No more jamming, just a firefight in the apples. He keys the mic, ramping the power to its limit. The battery whines in protest, voltage dipping, but the signal surges, a tidal wave crashing into the enemy column. Feedback screeches back, a radio man's yelp cut short by static, followed by the clatter of equipment being hurled aside. The lead half-track swerves violently, its driver slamming brakes as orders garble into oblivion. Tires skid on the slick grass, the vehicle fishtailing into a shallow embankment. Crew bails out, tumbling into the underbrush, their shouts lost in the confusion. The command track fares worse. Elias watches through slitted eyes as smoke curls from its rear hatch. Fried circuits, valves popped like champagne corks. The signals officer, a wiry lieutenant with wire-rimmed glasses, leaps free, clutching a headset and waving frantically at the infantry, trying to orchestrate by voice alone. But it's futile. Without the radios knitting them together, the squad fragments. One group charges blindly toward the orchard's edge, firing from the hip, while another hangs back, milling in uncertainty. Elias sees a Feldwebel grab a runner, thrusting a map into his hands. Full back to couriers, the last gasp of a silenced command. The man sprints off on foot, dodging between trees, but Elias anticipates, tweaking his jam to bleed into the portable sets the foot soldiers carry, ensuring even whispered relays drown in noise. Artillery whistles overhead now, Allied 105s from the beachhead finding their range, shells blooming in black puffs along the German line. One catches a trailing half-track dead on, the blast wave rippling through the orchard like a seismic shudder. Shrapnel whistles, one piece embedding in a trunk with a meaty thunk. Ruiz returns fire, his Thompson barking in controlled bursts, dropping a Lanza mid-stride. The man crumples, his Schmeisser clattering into the grass. "Push 'em!" Reed bellows, rising to lob a grenade that arcs perfectly into the disabled track. The explosion rocks the air, a fireball of fuel and fury that scatters the survivors. Lomax joins in, his Garand cracking steady, picking off a spotter who tries to signal with a flare pistol. Elias keeps the transmitter alive, his arms trembling from the weight, but the chaos amplifies his work. The entire Panzer element, now a ragged tale of vehicles and men, staggers, cohesion shattered. What was a division's iron fist has become a fumbling grasp. Tanks idling without direction, crews arguing over engine decks as captains shout hoarse commands into the void. Elias catches a glimpse of the lead Panther from earlier, now reversed and retreating, its turret slewing uselessly as the commander inside pounds a useless radio console. You can sense the unraveling, the invisible threads of command snapping one by one. Runners dart like shadows, but they're too slow, too few. A motorcycle courier spins out on a turn, spilling into a hedgerow as his dispatches scatter like confetti. The 21st's vaunted panzers, bred for blitzkrieg precision, grind to a collective halt, their wolf pack reduced to isolated snarls. Reed hauls Elias to his feet amid the lull, the captain's face split in a rare grin. "Look at that mess, Kane. You've got an entire battalion dancing to your tune, or not dancing at all. But they're adapting. See the flags? Semaphore on the tanks. We need to move. Flank 'em from the north ridge before they regroup." Elias shoulders the rig, the heat seeping through his pack like a brand, his body protesting every step. The orchard falls behind as they creep through the undergrowth, the scent of cordite and apple blossoms clinging to their clothes. Bullets still snap occasionally, but the German fire lacks bite, scattered and desperate. In the distance, more engines rev. Allied reinforcements, Shermans clanking up the lanes, their 50 cals chattering in support. As they crest the ridge, the panorama unfolds. The Panzer division sprawled in disarray across the valley, a mechanical graveyard of stalled fury. Smoke rises from jammed vehicles, men waving white rags in frustration. The once mighty force silenced at its core. Elias powers down briefly to conserve the battery, the sudden quiet ringing in his ears like the aftermath of a bell. But he knows it's temporary. The Germans will counter, find a way to pierce the veil. For now, though, in this blood-soaked corner of France, his signal has carved a wedge, buying hours that could mean victory. The sun dips toward evening, painting the fields in crimson, as Elias tunes up again, ready for the next wave. The war whispers on, but the ether remains his domain, a silent empire where one man's frequencies hold back the storm. The ridge's crest offers a jagged vantage, wind-whipped grass, bending under the fading light of June 6, 1944, as shadows stretch like ink across the Normandy valley. Sergeant Elias Kane drops to one knee, the SCR-284 transmitter digging into his side like a reluctant companion, its weight a constant reminder of the invisible war he's waging. The air up here carries a sharper chill, laced with the distant brine of the channel and the acrid bite of smouldering rubber from a gutted half-track below. His fingers, raw from hours of dialing, probe the set's controls, recalibrating for the next assault on the ether. Captain Reed unfolds a crumpled map on the ground, pinning it with a rock that smells of wet stone. His voice is a low rumble, eyes flicking between the paper and the chaos unfolding in the basin. They're patching it together down there. Flags and runners, but it's sloppy. Hit their command net hard, Kane. 45 megacycles. That's where the battalion COs chatter. If we blind the head, the body flops. Elias powers the rig back to life, the tubes glowing faintly in the twilight, casting eerie flickers on his mud-caked boots. The hum builds to a growl, and he unleashes the signal, a modulated roar laced with false echoes, designed to mimic their own transmissions and sow paranoia. You can imagine it slithering down the frequencies like smoke under a door, infiltrating the Panzer commander's headsets, turning Avanzieren into a distorted mockery that sounds like Allied code. Private Lomax settles beside him, his M1 Garand cradled like a child, the wooden stock worn smooth from anxious grips. "Sarge, my ma back in Des Moines wouldn't believe this. Jamming Nazis with a backpack feels like something out of Buck Rogers." His voice wavers, undercut by the adrenaline that makes his hands shake as he lights a lucky strike, the match flaring briefly against the encroaching dusk. Ruiz scouts the ridge's edge, his Thompson slung low, peering through the scrub. "Save the comics, farm boy. Those Tigers are circling wagons. See the big one repositioning? If they get a wire line up, we're cooked." He nods toward the valley, where the lead Panther from earlier has anchored itself behind a shattered barn, its long-barreled KWK-42 probing the air like a blindfolded boxer. The ground pulses with the half-hearted rev of engines below, the 21st Panzer Division's remnants clawing for order. Elias catches the feedback through his speaker, urgent bursts of German, clipped and frantic, overlaid with his interference. "Störsender lokalisiert, Richtung Nord." Jammer located, north direction. They've got a fix on him, crude but closing, perhaps from a portable direction-finding set in that command track. Elias adjusts the antenna, angling it to scatter the beam, buying time as sweat traces salty paths down his temples. A flare pops from the German lines, blooming red against the sky, illuminating the disarray in stark relief. Half-tracks cluster haphazardly, their crews dismounting to string field wires between vehicles, desperate tethers in a wireless blackout. Infantry squads huddle around officers, maps unrolled on hoods, fingers stabbing at positions, while runners pedal furiously on battered bicycles, dispatch tubes bouncing. One courier, a lanky Gefreiter with a scarf around his neck, weaves too close to an idling KF-Zil. 250. The half-track lurches forward on a misunderstood hand signal, crushing the bike under its tracks in a screech of metal and a muffled cry. Elias's signal bites deeper, overlapping the wire relays with induced noise, electromagnetic bleed that fries insulators and sparks junctions. He envisions the sparks dancing in the dim interiors of the Panzers, radio men yanking plugs as consoles smoke, the acrid scent of burning insulation filling the steel tombs. The lead Tiger's turret jerks erratically, firing a ranging shot that sails wide, the 80 TDP shell detonating in a far hedgerow with a thunderclap that rattles Elias's teeth. "They're shooting blind," Reed says, a fierce satisfaction in his tone as he relays coordinates via field phone to a forward observer. "Artillery's walking fire on that cluster. Keep the pressure, Kane. You're unraveling them stitch by stitch." Lomax squeezes off a shot, the Garand's report cracking like a whip. Down below, a spotter topples from a half-track sideboard, his flare pistol clattering unused. Ruiz follows with a burst from his Thompson, brass casings tinkling into the grass, warm against Elias's knee. The return fire comes scattered, sporadic pops from Kar 98Ks, bullets whining off rocks but lacking the rhythm of coordinated suppression. Without radios linking fire teams, the Germans fire on instinct, wasting ammo into the gloaming. Elias pushes the transmitter harder, the battery's whine pitching up like a straining engine. Heat radiates from the chassis, blistering through his gloves, but he layers in a new trick, pulsed jamming that syncs with their engine harmonics, inducing vibrations in the few G antennas that could snap mounts or short circuits. The effect cascades. A second half-track stalls abruptly, its electrical system haywire, crew piling out to beat at the dash with rifle butts. Smoke billows from the engine bay, oily and black, carrying the tang of scorched wiring up the slope. You can feel the division's pulse faltering, the once synchronized beast reduced to thrashing limbs. A Panzer IV attempts a solo advance, tracks churning mud into fountains, but without spotter calls, it blunders into a minefield planted by paratroopers earlier, two booms in quick succession, treads shearing off in geysers of earth and flame. The commander bails, stumbling away with singed eyebrows, screaming for orders that never come. Runners multiply now, shadows darting between hulks, but Elias anticipates, shifting to blanket the infantry bands. A squad leader, cap askew, clutches a portable receiver, shaking it as if violence could restore the link. His men hesitate at a crossroads, unsure whether to press or pull back, their advance dissolving into a standoff. The entire sector, spanning a mile of bocage, grinds into stasis, panzers hulking like beached whales, crews reduced to peering through periscopes at phantoms. Suddenly a new rumble from the east, Allied Shermans, their radial engines growling as they crest a parallel rise, 75-inch guns traversing toward the jam. Reed whoops, slapping Elias's shoulder. "Look sharp. 4th Armored's linking up. Your blackout's given them the window. But watch that command, Tiger. It's got a star on the turret. Battalion Chief." Elias nods, eyes burning from the strain, but he locks the signal on the high command frequency. The Tiger's antenna quivers, then droops, severed by the overload. Inside, the Oberstleutnant lightly slams his fist on the intercom, his plans for a counter-thrust evaporating into static. Runners converge on it, only to scatter as Elias's pulses induce a feedback loop that broadcasts the commander's curses across the net, a final humiliation echoing like a ghost in the machines. The valley erupts in renewed fury, Sherman main guns barking. He rounds slamming into immobilized panzers, turning steel into infernos that light the night. German return fire sputters, isolated and ineffective, the division's spine broken. Elias eases back on the throttle, the transmitter cooling with a sigh, his body sagging against the ridge. The air fills with the roar of victory's edge, but he knows the night holds more. Probes, infiltrators, the war's unyielding grind. Ruiz grins through the grime. "Sarge, you didn't just jam 'em, you choked the life out. That whole pack's deaf and dumb." Elias manages a nod, Clara's face flickering in his mind amid the flames below. The ether quiets under his hand, but the silence he's forged echoes louder than any explosion, a void where a division's roar once thundered. As stars prick the sky, he tunes for the long haul, the silent saboteur in Normandy's gathering dark. Night cloaks the Normandy ridge like a heavy wool blanket, pierced only by the staccato flashes of gunfire and the orange blooms of exploding shells below. It's late June 6th, 1944, the day's fury bleeding into an uneasy truce as stars wink through wisps of cloud. Sergeant Elias Kane shifts his weight against a jagged outcrop, the SCR-284 transmitter strapped to his back like a parasitic twin, its residual heat seeping through his field jacket. The chill wind carries the mingled scents of cordite, charred metal, and the earthy rot of upturned soil, whipping his fatigue into sharper focus. His eyes, gritty from hours of squinting at dials, strain against the dark, picking out the hulking silhouettes of the 21st Panzer Division's remnants scattered across the valley like discarded toys. Captain Reed kneels nearby, his profile etched by the glow of a shielded flashlight as he pores over a signal from Division HQ, the field phone's wire snaking into the gloom. "They're praising the blackout, Kane. Says your jams stalled their entire eastern flank. But word is, Rommel's pulling strings from Caen. Expect a signals team at dawn to crack this. We hold till then, or the beachhead bleeds." Elias flexes his fingers, numb from the cold and the constant grip on the tuning knob. The transmitter's battery hums faintly in standby, a low throb against his spine, but he knows rest is a luxury. Through the ether's quiet, he catches faint probes, tentative pings from German direction finders, like fingers groping in the dark. They've localized him roughly, triangulating from fixed positions inland, but his scattered pulses keep them guessing. You can feel the tension coiling, the invisible cat and mouse where one slip broadcasts his exact perch. Private Lomax huddles close, sharing body heat as he munches a D-ration bar, the chocolate's waxy sweetness clashing with the night's metallic tang. "Sarge, you think Clara's listening to the radio back home, wondering if we're making the news?" Yanks jam the Jerry's silent, headline gold. His voice is soft, laced with the homesick drawl of the Midwest. But his eyes dart to the valley, where a lone tiger's searchlight sweeps erratically, probing for threats. Ruiz, posted as sentry a few yards downslope, hisses back, "Save the daydreams, Iowa. That light's no friendly, it's hunting. If they pinpoint us, we're lit up like Christmas." He chambers around in his Thompson, the actions click, swallowed by the distant rumble of a Sherman engine idling in support. Elias powers the set to a whisper, a subtle carrier wave laced with noise to mask their position while monitoring the bands. The speaker crackles softly, residual chatter from isolated outposts, German voices murmuring in frustration, piecing together fragments via courier. Der Störsender, Mobil, Nordhang, the jammer, mobile, North Slope. They're close. A signals detachment slipping through the lines on silent electric bikes or on foot, lugging portable detectors. Elias adjusts the antenna, a collapsible whip that sways in the breeze like a divining rod, directing his interference in a sweeping arc to blanket the approaches. Down in the basin, The Panzer division stirs like a wounded animal. What remains of the column, perhaps 24 vehicles, from hulking tigers to nimble half-tracks, clusters in defensive pods, engines cold to conserve fuel, crews whispering around hooded lanterns. Elias spots runners weaving between them, shadows flitting from hull to hull, bearing wax-sealed orders from regimental HQ. One courier, silhouetted against a dying fire, pauses to light a cigarette, the matches flare, revealing a face gaunt with exhaustion. But without the radio's glue, the relays lag. A half-track revs prematurely, its driver misreading a hand signal, lurching into a ditch where it spins wheels futilely, cursing echoing up the hill. The lead command Tiger, its turret scarred from a glancing Sherman hit, sits sentinel behind the ruined barn, the battalion commander's star emblem dulled by dust. Inside, Elias imagines the Oberstleutnant. Let's call him Von Keller, a veteran of the Eastern Front with a scarred cheek and a voice like grinding gears, pacing the cramped turret, barking at his adjutant to restore the net. Field wires snake from the tank to nearby vehicles, fragile lifelines prone to sabotage, but Elias's low-level bleed has already sparked 2 junctions, shorting out segments in pops of blue flame. A radioman emerges from the hatch, fumbling with a replacement antenna, only for it to wilt under the induced static, wires fusing in a shower of sparks. "They're trying backups," Elias mutters, twisting the modulator to inject phantom signals, ghost transmissions mimicking Allied artillery spotters, drawing fire onto their own positions. The effect is swift. A Panzer IV traverses its gun toward a false coordinate. The 75 seem to roaring into the empty night, the shell detonating harmlessly in a copse of trees that shower branches like brittle bones. Confusion ripples outward. An infantry platoon hunkered in a trench line scatters from friendly fire, their shouts fracturing the quiet. Reed nods approval, his gravelly voice cutting the wind. "Clever, Kane. That's got 'em jumping at shadows. Relay this to the Shermans. Tell 'em we've got the Panzers tied in knots." He scribbles coordinates on a message pad, passing it to Lomax for the runner detail. But the Germans press. A faint whine builds from the east. Low-frequency probes, a dedicated signals unit closing in, their Würzburg radar-derived finder beeping in rhythmic pulses. Elias hears it through his receiver, a digital heartbeat drawing nearer. He ramps the jams selectively, targeting their detection band with a high-energy burst that could overload their tubes from afar. The response comes garbled. A yelp over the airwaves, equipment frying in a distant thicket. But it's not enough. Shadows detach from the tree line below, a squad of 6, Fallschirmjäger pioneers perhaps, with detectors slung like carbines, creeping upslope, bayonets fixed on FG-42s. Ruiz spots them first, his whisper urgent. "Contact! 12 o'clock low. Signals, boys, armed to the teeth." Bullets whisper past as the pioneers open fire, suppressed bursts stitching the ridge. One round clips a rock near Elias, chipping stone that stings his cheek like hornet venom. "Cover!" Reed snaps, his carbine cracking in response. Lomax rolls left, Garand barking, dropping the lead man in a slump. Elias ducks, shielding the transmitter with his body, the sets hum, drowned by the firefight. He keys a frantic pulse, blanketing the pioneers' portables. Every man carries a backpack receiver for coordination, turning their advance into chaos. Orders shouted between them garble as headsets screech, one soldier clawing at his ears, stumbling into Ruiz's sights. The Bronx veteran's Thompson chatters, brass ejecting in hot arcs, felling 2 more in a tangle of limbs and gear. The survivors falter, their detector smashed underfoot in retreat, but not before lobbing a stick grenade that arcs toward the position. It bounces short, exploding in a flash that lights the scrub, shrapnel whizzing like angry bees. Elias feels a tug at his sleeve, torn fabric, no blood, and presses on, his signal now a fortress wall, repelling the probe. Dawn's grey prelude tints the east as the skirmish fades, the pioneers melting back into the valley's murk. Below, the Panzer division remains paralyzed, tanks immobile without synced commands, crews brewing ersatz coffee over foraged wood, eyes hollow with doubt. Von Keller's Tiger idles alone, its commander reduced to dispatching yet more runners, the division's momentum evaporated into the night. Elias eases the transmitter's load, the ether humming with his victory. But exhaustion gnaws at him, Clara's letters crinkling in his pocket like talismans. Reed clasps his shoulder, the gesture rare warmth in the cold. "You've silenced more than radios tonight, Kane. That pack's fangs are pulled. Dawn brings the hammer." As the first light creeps, Allied armor rumbles closer, the tide shifting under Elias's unseen hand. The war pauses, breathless, in the silence he's wrought. Dawn's first blush stains the eastern sky over Normandy, a pale pink bleeding into the grey haze of June 7th, 1944, as if the earth itself is hesitant to wake to another day of slaughter. Sergeant Elias Kane stirs on the ridge, his body a map of aches from the night's vigil, the SCR-284 transmitter now a dead weight across his lap, its tubes cooled to a dull warmth that matches the chill seeping through his fatigues. The wind has stilled, leaving the air heavy with the dew-kissed scent of crushed grass and the lingering smoke from valley fires, where embers from shattered panzers glow like dying eyes. His fingers, stiff and blackened from dial grease, trace the set's antenna one last time, a ritual farewell to the weapon that's kept him alive through the endless dark. Captain Reed stands silhouetted against the lightening horizon, his field jacket rumpled, binoculars dangling from his neck like a talisman. He turns, face shadowed, but eyes alight with the raw edge of triumph. "It's breaking, Kane. Look down there. The 21st's folding like a bad hand. Your jam's the ace." His voice carries a gravelly rasp, honed by hours of barked orders, but there's an undercurrent of relief, the first crack in the armor of command. Elias rises slowly, joints protesting with pops like distant rifle fire, and peers over the ridge. The valley sprawls below in the half-light, a tableau of defeat etched in steel and mud. The Panzer division, once a coiled serpent of blitzkrieg fury, lies uncoiled and broken, tigers and panthers hulked immobile in clusters, their long guns drooping like wilted stems, crews milling aimlessly around engine decks slick with oil, half-tracks sit bogged or abandoned, canvas flaps torn, their mounted machine guns silent sentinels pointing nowhere. Infantry squads, remnants of Panzer grenadiers in feldgrouse smeared with bocage clay, huddle in foxholes or along hedgerows, their portable receivers discarded like useless relics, wires tangled in the grass. Runners, those tireless shadows of the night, slump exhausted against vehicle hulls, dispatch cases empty of purpose as orders arrive too late, too fragmented. You can almost hear the silence Elias has forged, a profound hush where the ether once thrummed with barked commands and synchronized roars. No few G-sets crackle with Vorwärts or Feuer frei. Instead, faint echoes of frustration rise on the breeze, curses in guttural tones, officers slamming hatches in vain. The lead command Tiger, Von Keller's pride, idles forlornly by the barn's ruins, its star emblem chipped, antenna snapped like a broken spine. Smoke curls lazily from its radio compartment. The Oberstleutnant's signals team reduced to poring over maps by candlelight, their faces gaunt masks of disbelief. One radio man, headset askew, kicks at a fried console, the clang reverberating up the slope like a death knell. Private Lomax stretches beside Elias, his M1 Garand propped nearby, the bayonet catching the dawn's gleam. Freckles stand out stark on his pale skin, but his grin cuts through the weariness. "Sarge, it's like you turned off their brains. That big cat down there ain't moved since the flare show. Ma's gonna get a letter saying I saw the Nazis dance without music." He chuckles low and disbelieving, popping a fresh clip into his rifle with a metallic snap. Ruiz, wiping dew from his Thompson's barrel, snorts from his vantage. "Dance? They're tripping over their own feet, Bronx style, but don't jinx it. Dawn brings the real party." His eyes scan the tree lines, ever vigilant, the night's skirmish leaving a fresh scar on his forearm, bandaged crudely with a strip from his shirt-tail. The rumble starts then, a deep-throated symphony from the west. Allied Shermans and Churchills, their Christie suspensions devouring the lanes, treads clanking in unison that the Panzers can only envy. Elements of the 4th Armored Division roll in, 75-inch guns elevated, spotting the stalled enemy like wolves scenting lame prey. A lead Sherman, its hull scarred from Omaha's beaches, halts briefly. The commander leans from the cupola, waving a gloved hand toward the ridge in salute. Elias imagines the tanker's awe. Briefings had warned of Panzer counterthrusts, but here the Wehrmacht's iron fist hangs limp, blinded by frequencies choked silent. Artillery joins the chorus, 105mm howitzers from the beachhead thundering in measured salvos, shells arcing with whistles that end in cataclysmic blooms amid the German clusters. One round strikes a Panther squarely, the turret leaping free in a gout of flame and twisted metal, the blast wave rippling up to buffet the ridge with hot wind and the tang of high explosives. German return fire sputters, sporadic 88mm coughs from the Tigers, but uncoordinated shells sailing wild into empty fields, wasting precious ammo. Without radios linking batteries to spotters, their vaunted fire control dissolves into guesswork, gunners traversing by eye alone. Elias watches as the rout unfolds, his jamming's legacy etched in every hesitant maneuver. A half-track attempts flight, its Maybach engine bellowing, but veers into a Sherman ambush. 50 Cal tracers stitch its side, crew bailing into the mud where GIs cut them down, with Garans barking in crisp volleys. Infantry squads, isolated without command net, surrender in waves, white rags fluttering from Mauser bayonets, hands raised against the inexorable advance. Von Keller's Tiger fires once more, a desperate ranging shot that clips a hedgerow short of target before the commander orders retreat. The beast lumbers backward, tracks shedding rubber, abandoning its half-tracks to the wolves. Reed grabs the field phone, relaying the breakthrough to HQ, his words clipped and urgent. Signals detachment confirms. Enemy division neutralized. Jamming op decisive. Flank secured. He hangs up, turning to Elias with a nod that speaks volumes. They want you at division post-haste, Kane. Brass is calling it a miracle, but first we mop this up. The squad descends the ridge, weapons hot, stepping over the night's debris, discarded detectors, shattered receivers glinting in the light. Elias shoulders the transmitter one last time, its weight lighter now, the battery drained like the enemy's will. A captured Gefreiter, hands bound, mutters through swollen lips as Ruiz prods him. Der Teufel im Äther, the devil in the air. Elias meets his gaze, saying nothing, but the truth hangs unspoken. He's the ghost in their machines, the silence that felled a division. As the sun crests fully, bathing the bocage in gold, the valley echoes with Allied cheers and the grind of victory. Shermans press forward, linking the beachhead, while medics tend the fallen and engineers string fresh wires for the push inland. Elias pauses amid the apple orchard, plucking a bruised fruit, its juice tart on his tongue like home. Clara's letters rustle in his pocket, promises of peace amid the mud. He's no hero in the newsreels, just a signals man with a knack for noise. But in this moment, as the Panzer's roar fades to whimpers, he knows his frequencies have carved a path through the storm. The war churns on. Caen awaits, the Siegfried Line looms, but here on Normandy's bloodied soil, one man's jam has silenced the thunder, turning wolf packs to scattered shadows. Elias slings the rig, joining the advance, the ether his ally in the long march to end it all.